All right, welcome live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. This is the Week in Review with myself, Liesl Wilson. Let's get into your headlines before we take a look at what those stories entail. Well, the National Institute for Communicable Diseases says 2,800 COVID-19 infections have been recorded within the past 24 hours. Further afield, Russia rejects U.S. allegations that it is responsible for cyber attacks on Ukrainian banking and government websites, as President Biden alleges that President Putin has decided to invade the Ukraine. And in sport, Banyana increased their chances of qualifying for this year's Africa Women's Cup of Nations. All right, those will look at your headlines. Let's get into your top stories. Perhaps today, there's a 5-kilometer walk, a prayer meeting, and as well as a dialogue around gender-based violence, which is taking place in Tembisa on Gauteng's East Rand today. Now, this comes just a week after a nurse from Tembisa Hospital was gunned down allegedly by her police boyfriend. Tembisa is amongst the areas identified as a crime hotspot in the country. Participants include Act Now, National Liquor Traders Association, Minister of Social Development Lindiwe Zulu, Gauteng Community Safety MEC Faith Mazibuko, and various other stakeholders. Now, they've since marched to Tembisa Hospital to show solidarity and hold a prayer meeting there. Our reporter Mbalenhle Mtetwa has the latest. A very good afternoon to you, Mbalenhle. Thank you for joining us. Perhaps as the program has, transpired today, walk us through what's happening on your end.
Good afternoon, Liesl. Yes, indeed. Marchers and civil society organizations, joined by some government officials, did march and make their way to Tembisa Hospital, where they stood outside singing church songs and chanting some struggle songs, obviously speaking up against that incident that took place at Tembisa Hospital, and doing that in solidarity with the victim, who has been laid to rest today. I believe she's been laid to rest in Sebokeng, but they got there and they showed their solidarity through prayer and also through song. It was a bit of a short day for today. It seems as though it wasn't a very long walk, but it was just 5 kilometers, but it went to all the right spots where they stopped and prayed and made a guard of honor in memory of the slain nurse who died just a few weeks ago. There are others who are here in support, but also among those organizations that are here in support is POA. POA speaking, when I spoke to them a little bit earlier on today, they spoke about the fact that, some of the heinous stories and the heinous crimes they actually deal with are gender-based violence, and sometimes they have to deal with the fact that after setting up a meeting with the victim of gender-based violence, the victim, when they do eventually follow up with the victim, they learn that the victim has actually passed on or has died at the hands of the perpetrator. They've also spoken about a recent case that they've also come across at police stations where they are stationed now for 24 hours a day. So if people need those services, they actually can find them at any police station. And they were talking about a 17-year-old girl who was raped by the uncle and who is now 7 months pregnant, and did not know she was pregnant until she went to visit the mother. The child seemingly is staying with the grandmother, who also didn't pick up on the changes and the fact that she was actually pregnant. And the lady that I spoke to decried the manner in which the girl was so disappointed and distraught over the fact that she cannot go back to school because she has fallen pregnant. Now, these are some of the stories that we've heard from people. We've also heard people saying that they've had enough and they don't want to be victims of gender-based violence, and they want some form of protection. And this is what actually formed the essence of what we saw happening here today. Someone who's actually here in solidarity with the organization is Education MEC Panyaza Lusufi, who we're going to be speaking to about his reasons for participating in this march. But also, we'd like to talk to you about how can we protect students or learners from falling prey to GBV or falling victim to gender-based violence, and to people who actually, or I'm not sure what the word is, but those who actually prey on them?
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Let me start by thanking all the participants this afternoon. They've assisted us to conscientize society to stop gender-based violence, and also to conscientize those that were not aware that the township is going through some difficulties. Going back to your question, it's a collective effort. You in the media, story writers that are writing stories for television and movies, those that are doing advertisement, and those that are generally in the media space. We call upon them to start to conscientize people to understand that violence does not solve problems, and we need to protect our children, because what is happening here is completely unacceptable.
Now, talk to us about your reasons for participating in this, in an initiative like this. What message would you like to get across to men in the country?
When one message is there, is to send a very strong message. We are tired of counting bodies. We are next to a hospital. We are tired of taking our sisters and our children to this hospital for no apparent reason, just because of hatred. We can't be a society that hates its own children and women. We can't be a society that harm our women and our children. So our presence here is to send a strong message to everyone that we are tired. We can't count bodies. We can't also fill our hospitals with people that are severely injured because somebody felt that they have the right to harm another person. So collectively, as activists in the gender-based sector, collectively with traditional leaders, collectively with the leadership of the church, we are standing firm and strongly that we are tired. And those that think or are planning to harm another person, they must stop, and stop now.
And what are your thoughts about that unfortunate event that took place at Tembisa Hospital, which has actually led to this march being stationed here today?
That's it. That's why we say we are coming to this hospital, because we know we lost a precious life. Somebody was caring for those that can't care for themselves. But somebody felt, who's supposed to be a caregiver as well as a law enforcement agency, but decided to take a life of somebody. So we are just here to support the family, but also to support the staff at this hospital, to say you are going through pain, but that pain is not yours alone. We are here to support you and give guidance as well.
Okay, now what this organization is trying to do is to change behavior by changing mindsets, right? What sort of mindsets do you think, our society would need to a change on in order to change behaviors?
It's care and support, especially to convey good messages to children, so that we don't have to have this kind of situation duplicating or replicating itself. So it's to give a message to say, change the way you conduct yourself, change the way you bring up boys and girls, change the way you communicate with them, change the way you treat them. And the overriding thing is care and support. If you care for somebody, they will return that care, they will return that love, and they will return everything that is good. But if you exercise violence, that is why we find ourselves having events like this.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. There you have it. That is Education MEC Panyaza Lesufi just speaking to us about some of the few issues that society or mindset shifts that need to take place in our society. Also talking about the fact that, dealing with children falling pregnant while at school or falling victim to rape at home or gender-based violence and so on is a collective initiative or a collective effort which involves everyone, including the department, communities, and all of South Africa. It's back to you in studio.
Balenhle, thank you very much for your time. Reporter Balenhle Mtetwa again giving us an update on the march, the 5-kilometer march and prayer, as well as a dialogue happening in Tembisa, again standing in solidarity for the high cases of GBV that are happening within that area. In other news, advocate Busisiwe Mqwebane says the investigation into claims that President Cyril Ramaphosa breached the Executive Code of Ethics is ongoing. It follows a complaint by ANC member Mervyn Dirks that Ramaphosa knew about the abuse of state funds for internal party campaigns. Ramaphosa is also facing a scope probe into the matter, where Mqwebane says she cannot talk about current investigations and it's difficult to say when they will be completed.
I indicated the last time that the complaint is still it is still early stages. We've issued allegations letters because once a complaint is lodged, and in this one we should finalize within 30 days, and I don't think we will be able to do that due to our workload. But then we've issued allegations letters, meaning giving the president, giving any other person who was present there an opportunity to, like we started collating evidence and information. So it's still a long process for us to go as far as that matter is concerned.
Moving on to other news, former ANC President Thabo Mbeki says the party needs to audit its membership in order to rid itself of criminals. The former ANC leader has been critical of the quality of party membership and has been known to prefer quality over quantity.
Fewer but better, a classic line of former ANC President Thabo Mbeki was against the campaign for 1 million members the party embarked on towards the 2012 Mangaung Conference. Addressing ANC Interim Provincial Committee in the Free State, Mbeki said the party needed to audit its entire membership and found out more about the people who claim to be members. IPC convener Mxolisi Dukwana agreed with him and said the wrong people have infiltrated the party.
We have attracted too many members in the ANC, and many of them are not necessarily ANC members, and we need actually to rid the organization of these rogue elements who are only here to enrich themselves and who are selfishly pursuing their interest, and this has actually given the ANC a bad name.
Dukwana, just like Mbeki, says the ANC was never ready to embark on the 1 million membership campaign. Today, the ANC faces challenges including infighting, chaos and deaths in its branch meetings. Kosatu says the ANC has leaders who hate and can't tolerate one another, which makes the renewal program difficult. Kosatu says the ANC has leaders who hate and can't tolerate one another, which makes the renewal program difficult.
I think what was wrong was actually to look into the quantity, the 1 million target, and without also understanding what that 1 million will do, without preparing ourselves properly to ensure that whoever comes in is actually reflects or it becomes the embodiment of the values of the organization. So we attracted to Bani Nabani, and people came in, and others are just criminals. And I mean, you see these things happening all over. During the BGMs and many meetings of the ANC, you've got criminal elements who would go out and disrupt these. These are people who should not be ANC members.
Some are and some are not. We have a mixture. We have a mixture of leadership. We have some who are inherently factionalist, and we have some who are working towards building unity of the movement.
The ANC is trying to renew and revive itself, but faces resistance from those perceived to be corrupt and who are using the party for their own benefit. Samkele Masego, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
Right, for a review of some of the other top political stories this week, we are joined by political analyst Levi Ndove. Very good afternoon to you, Levi. Thank you for joining us here once again.
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Thank you for having me today.
All right, Levi, obviously there have been a plethora of news stories that have come, catapulted to the fore. Perhaps we could start on the issue of education. Again, around the same time last year, perhaps even previous years, we see the issue of education coming through. Again, protests surfacing once again against some of the issues, including this time round what seems to be the issues of vaccine mandates. You've also got issues of high debt and obviously admissions, amongst other things. Walk us through what's being highlighted this time around. What lessons can we take from previous years? How do we begin to move forward?
Well, I think, Lizelle, it's important to note that the issue that you have actually raised are the issues that have been affecting higher education for some time, especially when we talk about issues that relates to funding of higher education, matters that relates to registration, matters that relates to accommodation, and many, many other issues. For almost a decade, we have had students marching at the beginning of the year annually. And SASCO has been at the forefront of those marches. And in the main, the marches were informed by the fact that students always get frustrated when it comes to funding, especially related to NFSAS. And one would have expected that NFSAS with different universities should have developed a better model by now to be able to deal with matters that relates to funding so that the challenges that affect students in higher education are not actually being experienced even now. We have got a lot of students in many universities that are frustrated, we have not yet registered because of the challenges that are faced in relation to NFSAS. And that is also confirmed by the leadership of the National Board of SRCs, whilst they are actually raising these complaints on a regular basis. Issues that relate to students' accommodation and students' transportation should not be issues that students are still raising even today, because different universities, with the help of the Higher Education Ministry, should have been able to deal with these issues so that when January starts or the academic year commences, these issues should have been dealt with in the previous year. But at the same time, you still have, even though we're moving towards the fourth industrial revolution, you still have universities where you'll still get students with long queues, you will still get students that are frustrated having to move from one place to the other because some of the universities seem not to be prepared to adjust to the current challenges in terms of registrations and admissions. And that is why most universities in South Africa would not commence the academic year on time, because for me, I see an element of poor planning which has got a huge impact on the academic year. Another important aspect that we have in the South African higher education sector are issues that universities and everybody else will claim that they couldn't do anything about because of COVID-19. But one must commend some of the universities that have come clear to say students who want to continue with their lessons should actually vaccinate. Whether the decision is right or no or wrong cannot be an issue right now. But the issue is that some of the universities have been able to be clear in terms of coming up with a clear position to say, please vaccinate so that you are able to come and attend your lessons. The challenge that we constantly face with some universities again is that still now in February, towards the end of February, some of the universities in South Africa have not just yet declared whether they are going to go online, whether they are going to go the traditional way. And that creates unnecessary confusion. But of course, they might also still blame that we don't know what is actually going to happen in the future because we still have a COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
But I think it is time that universities should be able to plan their programs much earlier so that once in South Africa, all universities will start the academic year as planned and we do not have this kind of disruptions going on.
Because, we obviously look at how this is going to impact the academic year for the rest of the year, perhaps even the future labour force of the country that's obviously set to benefit from these students who do attend university, Levi. Let's move into another issue that came to the fore this week. We saw the city of Tshwane collecting, up to 300 million rand in revenue since the beginning of this week, which perhaps one part of a more aggressive approach to the disconnections of services that we saw due to accounts that, were in arrears or were unpaid utility accounts at large. And I wonder, for all those who had been affected, obviously there was some anticipated backlash because the city obviously also faces some legal challenges going forward. But perhaps the manner in which it was conducted, conveyed and communicated. I mean, we also understand, it was on social media, information about who and what was also shared. I wonder, was this the best approach in doing so? At the end of the day, we do understand municipalities also need revenue to apply and implement their services at large. How do you analyse and critique this unfolding?
I think the city of Tshwane and some other municipalities might have been finding themselves in a very, very difficult situation, in the sense that we just few months after the elections, and citizens want services to be delivered. And for services to be delivered, you need revenue, you need money to be able to provide these services. But also at the same time, you have got very big entities and state departments that are also not paying this money to the municipalities. And I think some might perceive it as a wrong approach, especially when it comes to publicizing those departments and entities whose electricity has been cut off. But I think it's also important for people to know who are the people that are paying their dues to the municipality and who are the other people who are not doing so that even when the municipality is unable to meet some of its obligations, we should not only put the blame on the municipality, but we also have to put the blame on ourselves. There are also challenges, especially in the city of Tshwane, and I know also in the city of Johannesburg, wherein the consumers, in the main citizens, would complain that it appears as if there are no meter readings that are actually being done, and the municipalities are actually using estimates. And I think also you need the municipalities to be able to ensure that if they do that to the residents, they should have done proper auditing of their work so that you don't disconnect people that have actually paid. Another aspect which for me has to go now to the power utility, which is Eskom. I would have expected at this stage that Eskom would have developed ways and means to prevent people from connecting electricity illegally. I wouldn't know how they should do it, but with the technicians that they have and with the technology that they have, they should have by now developed a strategy wherein they're able to prevent the illegal connections. But also, the decision by the city of Tshwane puts all of us under pressure, especially Eskom, to say, now that as residents who are being cut off when we don't pay, it means that after paying, citizens will say we don't expect load shedding to happen because they're paying their money. And also at the same time, the city of Tshwane and the city of Johannesburg and all the municipalities that have taken this approach must also then up their game in terms of service delivery. Because for me, this issue is about receiving and also providing a service. So after getting the money, one should actually expect the service to actually improve in these different cities.
Levi, in the interest of time, obviously, there's more questions because you did touch on how, Johannesburg also followed suit, and it would be interesting to see the reactions that are also going to be coming through on that front. But I wonder also this week with the President Masona debate and reply, obviously having to also address some of the issues on security, climate change, Eskom at large, and job creation. What's emerged on that front? Was there enough clarity, perhaps perhaps even on the ideological stances that he had taken in his speech for Sono 2022 to set the tone for the year into. What's emerged on that front as we proceed lastly?
Well, I think the president was able to provide a feedback on the activities of government relating to COVID-19, on the government's plan relating to the economy, and also capacitating the state institutions to deliver on the democratic project of South Africa. But what I've actually observed is that MPs were able to provide as much guidance to the president as possible, especially on issues that relates to security, especially on issues that relates to non-performance of some ministers, on issues that relates to the economy, and a variety of issues. And my expectation is that it should be time now to deliver on the part of government. Yes, we've heard about plans. Yes, we've heard about commissions and different committees that have been established. But now it is time that ordinary citizens must say, Mr. President, it is time to do something about our situation. And of course, having the different incidents in South Africa, especially on security matters, one should expect action to be done by the president.
So it's accountability, consequence management, recovery and implementation of the deadlines that had been communicated. Levi, thank you very much for joining us once again. Levi Ndazi, political analyst, giving us an update on some of the top stories that transpired for the weekend review. Perhaps as we move on to other stories that made headlines this week, we've seen that the State Capture Commission has now applied for an extension to deliver its final report at the end of April 2022. This will be the sixth time that the Commission heads to the Pretoria High Court for an extension. In January, President Cyril Ramaphosa received the first part of the report in a ceremonial handover, which focused on SAA, the Gupta-owned New Age newspaper, as well as SARS. Now, part two, which was released earlier this month, put the spotlight on state-owned enterprises like Transnet, as well as Denel. The very last, third and final part was due at the end of this month, but according to a statement released by the Commission, this will not be the case. The Commission cites a number of reasons for the delay, including the acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo appearing before the Judicial Service Commission. In other news, almost 6,860 people were murdered in South Africa in the last 3 months of 2021. Now, that is 562 more murders compared to the last 3 months of 2020, which is an increase of nearly 9%. Police Minister Bheki Cele, revealing the latest statistics this afternoon, obviously said that the number of sexual offences had decreased by 9%. Attempted murder was up by 3%, with 193 more cases having been reported.
Crimes such as common robbery, sexual assault, attempted sexual offences and contact sexual offences have recorded a 3 to 4 digits decrease, except for murder, which remains worryingly stubborn. In the 3 months of reporting, an 8.9% increase in murder was recorded.
Of course, those were the crime stats released by Police Minister Bheki Cele yesterday. Again, just highlighting the number of sexual offences having decreased by 9% amongst other worrying statistics. Let's leave it there today. It has been an absolute pleasure, as always, bringing you the Weekend Review. From myself, Liesl Wilson, and the team, until tomorrow, where we take a look at the week ahead. Let's leave it there for now. It's goodbye.